Hey, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ryan, the sales director here at Crow Canyon. I just want to say thanks again for hopping on and joining us on our webinar today. I'm going to be talking today about purchase requests and contract management for SharePoint Online or SharePoint On-Premise. Really what this is stemming from is the current situation a lot of us are in, and that's working remotely or having most of our workforce not be in the same office, right? 90% of us are on quarantine or in lockdown. So we wanted to be able to show our tools and how you can effectively take advantage of your 365 space or maybe your SharePoint on-premise space. So we've had this application kind of series of keeping your remote workforce engaged. We started with the self-service portal, kind of a one-stop shop for requests across your entire organization using your 365 environment. That was a few weeks ago. It's basically this layer that sits above, it's this portal that sits above our application layer for your end users to submit requests through. So they come to you at the portal and they submit an IT request, they submit a purchase request, a new contract request, whatever it may be, maybe a new vendor request for contracts, right? The landing page is unilateral across all end users, and then the request gets routed to the appropriate backend department. So really it becomes kind of like this tiered structure of how do I use my 365 environment to the best of my abilities? The SharePoint environment's top level, whether it's on-premise or online. The self-service portal is the landing page. And then the application layers is the functional area, right? Who's going to be working these requests, how the requests are going to be processed, and what specifics are going to be handled by each department, right? So last week we did IT. Today we're going to be focusing on, like I said, contract management and purchasing. So I'm going to try to keep these both to right around 20 minutes or so. But I do want you guys to know if you do have any questions, I have a colleague on the line, James Restivo, who's going to be answering those. So if you have any questions, feel free to shoot those out as we go. If they're pertinent, we'll take a stop and take a deeper dive because we do have some time here, a little wiggle room on either side of each application for more questions. Okay, so let's take a look at our purchase request system first. I think that's where we're going to start. And really, purchase requests, purchase orders, ultimately it's the same thing, right? It's just if it hasn't gone through the approval process or not. So the way our process rolls is a purchase request is submitted, and then it goes through an approval process on the back end, and then it becomes a purchase order for it to be tracked, right? So I can open up another tab here. When we open up this new purchase request, what we're doing is we're leveraging something called Nitro Studio. And what Nitro Studio is, it's a tool set that is created by Crow Canyon. So I'm sure those familiar with like maybe InfoPath or SharePoint Designer, maybe even the Power Platform now in 365, or maybe some other third-party tools for SharePoint. And we have our own set, and they underlie all of our applications. So all of our forms, all of our workflows, all of our reports are Crow Canyon built and designed. Now, you still can leverage other tools, other vendor tools or Microsoft tools within the space. The reason that we have our tools admin our applications is because A, it makes it easy for us to support our products, right? If you have a question specifically about Nitro Studio, we're the expert. We can typically turn around a response within the day, within a couple hours. Second is we get to control the pricing, right? A lot of other tools, either by Microsoft itself or other third-party tools in the space, is charged per user, right? Since our applications are price per site, and the Nitro Studio underlies that, we're not relying on another pricing model to make sure that we can provide you the best possible price for our applications, how they come out of the box. So really long-winded way for me to say everything you see here is configurable, it's customizable. So right now we're looking at the purchase request form, the original submission for a purchase request. But the idea that this form is set in stone is non-valid. Basically, you can control what we capture from an information perspective. We just want to give you an idea of how it looks out of the box. So it's short description, what type of purchase request is it? I'll just plug in some basic info here. If there's a priority, is the project budgeted? What type of purchase is it? Is it for hardware? Is it for services? Let's say hardware for today. You can plug in a dollar amount, maybe for a department that it's for. You can plug in a reason. So this is rich text. a multi-line of text column, I should say. So you can screenshot, you can copy and paste, or you can just say, hey, need new laptops for remote workers. Whatever you need to do. Who the purchase agent is, we'll say it's for me, and who it's submitted for. We'll use me for both, why not? So now, the second part of the purchase request form, and the one we get the most questions about, is our line items, the actual physical things we're adding to the purchase request. And the way that we've architected it is pretty similar to like repeating rows with inside a info path. Same idea, but a little different. Basically, we have a child list that rolls up into the purchase request list, and that's our purchase items, our purchase catalog, I guess you could call it, right? And what this does is it gives us the ability to pull up another list form and relate it to the list that we're in. So our purchase request form is open, and we're looking at our purchase item list. What it does is it gives us the ability to either select from a category or catalog living in that list. Let's say hardware asset, and we'll say laptops, and it can pull things like unit per price, quantity, let's say 3, a vendor if you have them, description, accounting codes if you need it, and you can add in. Now you can start to build in multiple line items for your purchase request, right? And the cool thing here is that you're not limited to one. Really, you can add in as much as you want. And we've given you a little bit of extra flexibility here as well, to say, okay, maybe it's not in my catalog. Maybe it's something that, maybe it's something that is outside of what we typically order. What you can do is you can go in and do the same thing. You can plug, any item that you want into this form and build it into the purchase request details. And it keeps an aggregated cost here down at the bottom, our total cost, I should say, of the total purchase request. This is going to be important as we move through the approval process. But the idea is this: you fill out your purchase request details, you add in as many line items as you want, any comments, and then you hit submit for approval. Now, the submit for approval process is a little bit different than the save button. Saving's like saving your work, right? Like, okay, how do I want to save this form, maybe come back and add to it later. But when you hit submit for approval, what we're doing is we're leveraging a backend list and a workflow process that is built into the tool out of the box. So you can see it's going to give you the little green arrow, submitted for approval. So the end user gets a notification saying everything's savvy, everything's good. Now in the application admin center of this purchase request system, up here in the upper right-hand corner, it gives us access to, well, the admin center, right? Where you can come in and change things like lists. You can add things to your purchase items, right? Build out that catalog. You can change the purchase request forms. You can add departments that can be purchased for. You can add purchase categories that can be purchased under, right? Add into your catalog. You can also configure your approval levels. So the idea is that you can configure approval levels based on a litany of information that are stored within the purchase request. It could be type of purchase. It could be amount of purchase. It could be the department that's purchasing for, as well as multiple levels within that, within each particular type of purchase. So let's say an IT purchase has a 3-level approval process, right? And it needs to go to, in this instance, Scott first, maybe James second, and then myself third. So it gives you that ability to build in multiple levels of approvers, as well as multiple levels of approvers per approval type, if that makes sense, right? So IT could have 3, maybe marketing has 1, maybe general has 3, right? It gives you the ability to easily add in approval levels based on those certain parameters that you put into place. And we already have the form built in. Again, these forms are configurable, but the idea is the same. Who's the approver? What amount is the approval for? Say 10,000. We'll put it as me. Who's the purchase agent? What level is this? When do you want this due? Okay, I want to do in 2 minutes or 2 hours, let's say. Help if I could type. There we go. Approval level name, we'll call it test approval. So now, based on these workflows that we've built using our Nitro Studio, which is cool because our workflows are built on lists and on columns, so when this form is saved, what we can do is we can leverage those pre-existing workflows to say, hey, look, if this approval is over $10,000 and it's for a general purchase, it goes to Ryan, right? And what's nice about that, what I say goes to Ryan, what I mean is we have a couple of different options. And as I'm talking, I'm going to pull some of those options up. So one option is it actually creates an approval task. So the approver gets an email notification that says, hey, you have a task to come in and complete for this purchase order. I need you to sign off on this to make sure, to say like, hey, yes, Ryan can purchase this thing, right? The other option, and they can come in, I should finish this first, hold on a sec, ahead of myself here, excited by the email functionality. The other option is email, which we're going to get to in a second, but I want to talk about this form first. So they can come in here and mark it as they need to, when it was due, if it was approved, what they said when they approved it, right? Like they have the ability to come in here and make changes as they see fit. They can deny it, they can send it back, but they have the ability to come in and do so from the form itself. So they're being directed to the SharePoint site, I guess is the best way to say it. The other option, the one I got a little giddy about, jumped the gun a little bit, is updating these purchase approval tasks via email. And what I mean by that is everyone's working from their phone nowadays, right? So we're all working from our phones as much as we can, whether it's via email, whether it's through the SharePoint app, Outlook app, right? Going to SharePoint seems kind of like a thing of the past. Kind of a shameless plug here, but there is a bot webinar that we're hosting tomorrow to see the new Teams interface that Crow Canyon has. So stretching ourselves into Teams as well as other avenues of Office 365, but the principle is applied here as well. Maybe your managers or maybe your approvers are not comfortable navigating to SharePoint. Maybe they don't want to. So what we do is we give them the ability to approve these purchase requests via email using what we call lazy approval or quote unquote lazy approvals. The idea is this: they get an email with information from the purchase request. All we're doing is we're mapping over items from that purchase request. What's it for? What's the cost? What's the quantity, right? Then we give them these buttons in the email to do exactly the three things we talked about: approve, deny, or send back. And what happens is we basically create a choice column within the SharePoint site using the common language from the title of the email to update that particular purchase request. The body of the email is going to come over as description. The title of the email is how the purchase request is going to move forward from there. So it gives them the ability to either interact with the site, like we talked about here, through the approval tasks, or do it all via email. The nice thing is that regardless of which avenue they go down, let's say it's approved, all of that's going to be stored against the purchase request itself. So once it goes through the process, right? Okay, so we come in here and we look at our purchase request dashboard, and we see a purchase request. We can see them in all their different levels of the process here: submitted, pending approval, pending PO generation, right? What you can do is all that information is saved against a purchase request. So just because we're doing something via email doesn't mean that we have lost that info, doesn't mean that we've lost or that information isn't being stored somewhere. And if all looks good, they can come in, your purchase agents can either create the purchase order automatically using one of our custom actions, or I'm sorry, they can either create the purchase order manually using one of our custom actions, or it can be created automatically when all of the approvals are have gone through their process, right? If everyone's approved, a purchase order can be, a purchase request can be created into a purchase order automatically, or you can have the purchase team or the finance team do it themselves. So we give you some flexibility there once it's approved, how it flows through the system. But here's our purchase order, the one that we created, right? So now we've submitted a purchase request, we've gone through the approval process, it's been approved. Now we have a purchase order, right? Now we want to track it. Now we want to see everything related to this purchase order. So our first tab, our cover sheet, is basically the purchase request submission form, right? What it was, the different line items we have, and the total cost. Our second tab is our purchase request details, exactly what I was just talking about. So what it does is it gives you a link to the original purchase request, the cover sheet like we just saw, as well as the approval task for that particular purchase request. So at any time, I mean, you're going to see this a lot in all of our applications. It's going to come up in contracts as well. If you've sat in on any of my other webinars or have any of our other products, the idea is the same. How can we connect all of the different information living within the application into one form? SharePoint, if we talk about base form, it's all stored into different lists, right? Purchase request list, purchase items list, approval task list. All of this information is living across different spaces. Because it provides us flexibility. We can capture different information to each list. It keeps our forms clean cut and sleek. But also it gives us the ability to compartmentalize permissions. And then leveraging what we've built in Nitro Studio, we use something called associated items in our forms to connect all that information together. So although it's living in different areas in the site, we do our best, we work our hardest to make sure that you can access any of that information as long as you have the proper permissions from the form that you're in. So if I'm in the purchase order form, I could easily jump to the purchase request list. I could easily jump to the purchase items list, all from one interface. Finance department, check voucher, check info, ship to information. This can either be, I'm going to come into the edit item here. This could either be manually populated, like you can come in here and plug in the check info, the date paid, the date received, the invoice number or the check number, maybe the ship to information. Here, we'll plug in some info here. And where was I? Yeah, okay, manually plugging in, sorry, doing two things at once. So you can manually type it in, or we also have some REST API services as a part of Nitro Studio that can be applied to our applications. We can leverage external data columns, which SharePoint has out of the box. We've been integrated with our Nitro Forms tool. And what that means is, if you're storing information in other third-party systems and you don't want to have duplicate data entry, maybe your ERP system is holding the invoice numbers or the check numbers, and you want to pull that information into the purchase order system, you have that ability to do so. So yes, it's all standalone. It works as it is with some manual entry, or you can go the route of automation. It just depends on how automated you want this to be. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about updating the purchase request now. So our different line items is how we're going to dictate what happens with this application, right? Or with this particular purchase order is when what happens with these line items is going to dictate the process of the purchase order, I should say. So let's pull up this Dell desktop that we put in here. So here's our purchase item form that our end user filled out during the original purchase request process. And what we have is these custom actions, these manually invoked workflows that are a part of Nitro Studio. So we have an automated workflow process, which happens automated, right? Based on some sort of trigger. When an item is created, it's modified. When that form is saved, it sends a trigger to do something with this particular item. Our custom actions are generating the workflow at a date of our time of our choosing. So in this case, we're gonna run a workflow to say, hey, we've received these 3 items. And what it's gonna do is gonna check for you. Okay, do we have proper permissions to come in and mark this as received? Have we updated the received quantity? Do we fulfill the PO? Nope, we're gonna partially fulfill the purchase order because there's multiple line items on this purchase order. So now this particular line item has been received, but the purchase order itself is now partially received because one of the line items has been received as opposed to all of them, right? Line item is received, purchase order is partially fulfilled, this line item still needs to be completed. So it gives you the ability to kind of, I don't know if taking human error out of it is the right term, but it just makes life easier, right? So instead of having to go and mark off 4 or 5 different statuses and making sure that they're correct when people are coming in and auditing or looking at particular items or whatnot, rolling up to management. So instead of having to go in and make sure that all of that is pristine and perfect every time you update something, it does it automatically for you. So now when we mark the other line item as complete, it's going to update the purchase order for us as fulfilled, right? Everything's been received, so our purchase order is now fulfilled. Now we move on to the next step with it, right? So our status has been marked as fulfilled. Okay. So there's a bunch of different statuses that you can apply to your purchase orders. That goes for any choice column. I mean, and that's really what these are. These are choice columns within SharePoint. So it gives you an idea of what you can do out of the box, right? So this can be Oh, it grayed it out for me. Well, shows you what we can do with permissions. The reason that this is grayed out is because the line items has been fulfilled. So it's taken away. I can't come back in and change the status. They're saying, hey, Ryan, the line items have been received. You can't come in and change the status after the fact, right? I don't have the proper permissions to do so. So I've said it a few times, but our recurring point's always going to come back to that feature, that factor of, do I have the proper permissions to do so? The original point was changing the statuses on the purchase orders. Fulfilled is one of them. I mean, really, you can put in any statuses that make sense to your organization. It's a choice column in SharePoint, meaning it's as configurable as you want it to be. So if maybe yours isn't fulfilled, maybe it's reconciled. Whatever it is, you have the ability to add those in as you see fit. You can also sign our purchase orders as well. We have an e-signature piece as a part of our Nitro forms. I'm just going to sign with my finger real quick, but you can sign, purchase orders as well, if you need that option. Okay, so now as you can see, our purchase order has jumped status. Everything's ordered. Now we need to be reconciled. So we can kind of move this through here. We can update our PO status. Just like we use custom actions for our line items, we can use a custom action to update our PO status. Okay, our status is fulfilled. Now I have proper permissions because I'm in the proper screen. And we can say, hey, it's ready to be shipped. Oh, it's yelling at me. I can't ship it because we need to make sure that this is reconciled. So there are checks in place, right? There are things in place to say, hey, you can't jump ahead steps. You can't do that because this needs to be done first. Dependencies based on things within the system to make sure that everything is done correctly. So once we've reconciled it, now we want to ship it. Most of the people that we talk to, most of the folks have to actually generate a purchase order in one way or another, right? Whether it's printing out and physically having a piece of paper of, or as a PDF in an email, right? But it has to change hands, maybe go to a vendor or whatever it may be, right? Purchase orders are very rarely just internal. So for those of you who have tried to print within SharePoint out of the box, it's a little bit, I don't know, sticky. It's not as clean as it could be. So our print manager is another piece of our Nitro Studio. So I'm going to talk about it a lot. We have access to the Nitro apps in any of our applications. This is not in addition to, this is the backbone like we talked about. And everything that we built is revolving around Nitro Studio in one way or another. Workflows, forms, reports, the Power Portal, branding, but our print manager is the one I want to talk about right now. And what we do is we basically give you the ability to create a rich text template to generate purchase orders with. So if I hit this print button, what I have is a pre-saved template to say, okay, what I want to do is I want to populate information from that SharePoint list item, in this case, the purchase order, to create our PDF, to create our purchase order. I want my signature to come over. I want the line items to come over. I want the ship to information to come over. Who's it going to, our header, right? And then we have the ability to have some actions up here on the right-hand side. You can export it to PDF to be printed. You can email it, and now the template will come over as an attachment. But it's pretty seamless. The process is pretty seamless once this purchase order, or once the print template is created. Generating a PDF from this is just as simple as clicking the button. So it's not your typical SharePoint out of the box where it's only showing line items, or maybe you have to copy and paste information into Word. It does give you the ability to generate a template right here from the item itself. So it's pretty cool. I mean, all the way from purchase request to purchase order process, we give you checks and balances all the way along, from a multiple approval process to making sure that it goes through the proper steps once it is a purchase order, order to fulfilled to reconciled to shipped, right? Whatever it may be, we can put those processes in place all the way down to printing and distribution of that purchase order. Now, from a reporting perspective, again, the report center is a part of Nitro Studio. You can see some reports within our different dashboards, right? These are an example of our reporting, but you can come in here and you can create any reports that you want. The nice thing about the reporting tool, here we'll focus on the dashboard. The nice thing about the reporting tool is that, again, it's list specific. It's not tied to a user. It's not tied to, you know, a particular account, and it's living on columns within the list. So as long as the information lives within the purchase order system, it can be reported upon. The cool thing about the reports is not only are they live, so they can be refreshed every 30 seconds, I think. Don't quote me on the time, but they can be refreshed at a date and time cadence if you're choosing. So they're live, they're happening, and they're refreshing automatically. Another option you can do with the reporting tool is actually generate, or I should say, create workflows to generate reports and send them to a person at a date and time cadence if you're choosing. So leveraging our workflow tool, this guy right here, what you can say is, hey, I want to send, you know, all purchase orders from by month to the CFO, to the finance director, to the CEO in an email, or give him a link to our dashboard. So what's cool is that not only are they live and they happen in place, but you can point people at these particular reports or dashboards using the workflow tool. So I'm gonna hit a few questions here because we're just coming to the end of the purchase order demo right before we ship to contracts. I'm gonna hit a few of these guys. We'll talk about them a little bit while we're here. So where do the PO items get saved? In SharePoint or in another database? Right now, it's all saved in SharePoint. So all of our applications live inside of your SharePoint space, right? There's no Crocanian, it's not saved on Crocanian servers, anything like that. It's typically all self-contained within your environment. Another question comes up about dealing with list item limits. We do archive. So we have some archive approval processes that you can add to the workflow tool to archive the purchase requests or items or purchase orders into another list. We're also talking about working with another one of our customers about templating our list. That's another option that we have with our forms tool. You can actually template the list in the form type and then create a new list and have that form recreated on it. So you're saving items in a new list and you have that secondary list as, you know, storage or archive, I guess is a better way to say it. So there are some options, there are workarounds. Unfortunately, you know, we are relying upon Microsoft's system here, right? So we can only do as much as they allow us, but we do have workarounds for pretty much everything that there is a hiccup within the Microsoft space. Okay, another question. Is the system configurable in terms of changing the workflow? Absolutely. Everything you see within the system is configurable, right? This Nitro Studio, the forms, the workflows, all of these are fair game, right? So there's another question that goes along with this. You know, we don't have Nitro Studio. Is that something that would be separate? Nitro Studio is included in all of our applications. So like if you think about it from kind of a 3-level permission process, and this is going to something that's going to carry over into the contract space as well. So you think about it kind of like this: new purchase request or purchase request creation is your end users, right? They come in and submit the forms. Your department level, your finance team, your purchasing team, they're going to be working the purchase orders, the purchase requests, right? Out of these different dashboards to move the purchase request along, to have a purchase request become a purchase order, it be reconciled and shipped. The admin side, the 3rd level, can have access to the Nitro Studio and change anything that they want within the purchase order system. So our tool comes a certain way out of the box, which I'm showing you guys today, but it can be changed to meet your particular requirements. Purchasing is going to be different for every organization, right? No two companies are going to be the same. So what we want to do is give you the ability to leverage your existing platform, in this case, Office 365 or SharePoint on-premise, and by using our applications. And we want to get you a good part of the way there out of the box, right? Maybe it's 80%, maybe it's 90%, maybe it's 95%, right? But the idea is that leveraging Nitro Studio and training you on Nitro Studio, we're going to give you the ability to take ownership of the application on your own. So that 5 to 15% range, using Nitro, you guys can configure to make it make sense for you. So it's cool. In my opinion, I think you get the best of both worlds. You get this product that is cost effective and cost efficient, and it's stood up and ready to come out of the box as is, but you have all the tools to be successful in putting this, you know, tool into place to make it make sense for your organization. So back to the original question, is it configurable? Absolutely. Is Nitro Studio an extra cost? No, it's not. So everything is available within the space here, and it comes as one package within the application. I keep saying SharePoint on premise. Yeah, all of our applications, let me say this again, all of our applications are available on Office 365 or SharePoint on premise. So 365 in the cloud, absolutely, both the classic and the modern UI, as well as SharePoint on-prem 2013, 2016, and 2019. Right now, any available version of SharePoint where we can work with it. The only thing we're not working with anymore is 2010. But 13 and newer, cloud, classic and modern. So yeah, absolutely. Any other questions about the purchase order system before we shift over to contract management? Give you guys a few seconds here. Oh, you know what? There is one more point I want to make. Sorry. When a purchase order is created, I want to touch on this because it's something that we're going to talk about later in our application series, our asset tracking piece. This guy right here. So this happens a lot. We get a lot of questions about this with our current clients. Okay, hey, I have purchase orders and I have asset tracking. What happens when an asset is purchased in the purchase order system? Do I have to manually drag it over? The answer is no. We have a workflow in place where you can say, okay, a purchase order is created, it's approved, it's gone through, and now we have this hardware asset. We have these 3 laptops. What you can do is you can automatically have those laptops transferred over to your asset management list. So it's really cool. It just gives you the ability to connect all of your departments, within your 365 space, your cloud version, your on-prem version within SharePoint. So we have purchasing and asset management, you have IT and purchasing. It just gives you the ability to connect all those different tools together. The same goes for contracts. So let's take a sidestep over to the contract management application. It would help if I had it on screen. There we go. As pretty as that blue screen is, it's probably a little bit more pertinent. So contract management, contract renewal management really is the best way to describe this application. So what we're doing is we're just tracking contracts, the responsible entities within your 365 space. A lot of the people that I work with, a lot of the clients that come on as a contract renewal management are storing or maintaining their contracts either via email or Excel spreadsheet. What's cool about this tool is that now everything is in one common area, and it can have connections to other applications or other information within your SharePoint space. So that's another feature within Nitro Studio that I'd like to highlight real quickly before I dive into the features here, is that leveraging Nitro, you can actually have cross-site collection, cross-site and cross-site collection lookups. So you're not limited to pulling information from one site into your contract management application, into your purchasing application. If you're storing contract documentation in another site collection and another document library, we have the ability leveraging Nitro to pull that information into one site. I like that because, again, it's cutting down on duplicate work. Like you don't have to, migrate things over. You don't have to pull stuff over. So whether it's leveraging our external data columns, our REST API services to pull information in from a third party, or leveraging Nitro Studio again to pull information over from other site collections, you have that ability to have everything self-contained in one area and just look up to those forms where that information, wherever it may be stored. Okay, let's talk about contracts though. We'll create a new contract. While this is loading, come on, there we go. Okay, so contract info. Title of contract, type of contract. Actually, you know what? Well, I'm gonna switch gears here. I'm gonna go to another site because this has been updated and it's my fault. We have a new modern site that I wanted to show for the contract space, and I'm gonna pull that up. That's my fault. I've been in quarantine for a month and a half now, so my brain's not functioning as well as it should. I apologize. My bad, guys. Give me 1 second here. Okay, contract management. Here we go. Let's start over. Cloud version, modern UI version, new contract. Okay. Show the new version. Here we go. That's a little cleaner. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, creating contracts. So we have different concepts, different ideas when it comes to creating contracts, right? We have a title, a type of contract, These are these choice columns I was talking about during the purchase order application. So if you have, whatever your types of contracts are, this is what the dropdown is going to reflect. Demo site, we just give you some options of what it could look like. Maybe this is a master service agreement. You can assign a responsible entity. Now, this is important because this is the person that's going to get a notification when this contract's coming due. So it's reading from your Active Directory, SharePoint user profiles, user in a column maybe, but it's pulling that information to say, hey, Ryan is the responsible entity for this contract. Put it in for a department, an expiration date. We'll set it out for April of next year. Associate a vendor to our contract if you want to, and then different renewal options. This is a 1-year contract, obviously, because I plugged in the expiration date first, but the idea is the same, right? It's reading that expiration date to say, hey, what are my renewal options? It's a 1-year contract, and we'll have it start today. So now, looking at some of the information that we have on this tab already, we can start to define some automated workflows and some approval processes. So maybe we want to set up a date and time cadence of your choosing to let me know that this contract's coming due at a certain day and certain time, April of next year. So maybe you want me to get a notification 90 days before, 60 days before, 30 days before to say, hey, Ryan, this contract is due and you have to do A, B, and C. So this is where we're going to read, these are the columns that we're going to read for that workflow. Now, as we start to dig through this, what is the finance associated with this contract? What's the dollar amount? What's the PO number? And again, this is something that, we can pull from other ERP systems if you want it to be auto-populated. What contract documents are associated with it? Do we have internal documents? Do we have external documents? And then milestones. So this goes back to our conversation about connecting child list to parent list within, any of our applications. Same goes for contracts, right? Connecting contracts to vendors, contracts to approval tasks, contracts to milestones. So in my mind, milestones kind of become like tasks, right? What tasks need to be completed for this contract, in its lifespan with the company? So this is typically when I talk to, new clients within the contract renewal space, this is where I have them create tasks or create milestones based on that date and time cadence for maybe the renewal, or maybe just post renewal. What needs to be done to make sure this contract goes off, smoothly and successfully? So it's like assigning a ticket in a help desk system, need you to do for 4/15/2021, right? And who you want to assign it to? So we'll say it's assigned to me. What's your deliverable? It's, let's just say number 1 here, and we'll give it a due date, sure, next week. So once I hit save, now, much like our purchase line items, what we've done is we've created an item in another list, in this case, the task list, the milestone list, but it's associated to the contract. So anytime now I'm in this contract moving forward, I can see all the milestones completed related to this contract all from one screen. So I don't have to ping, I don't have to ping me and say, hey, Ryan, did you do this? Hey, Ryan, did you do this? Hey, Ryan, did you do this? Now you can come in and see, okay, look, it was assigned on this day, it's in progress, and I'm working on it. And another nice piece about this, much like the SLAs that we can define around the date column for when the contract is renewed, the same principle can be applied to any date column using our workflow tool. So instead of having to say, actively reach out to me and say, hey, Ryan, have you done this yet? What you can do is define a workflow to say the day of, or the day before, or every 15 minutes if you want to. I always say you can ping the person as aggressively as you choose to let them know that this task is coming due. So you can get a notification to say, right, like I was saying, the day before, the day of, say, Ryan, this task needs to be done. This milestone needs to be finished before we can move forward with this contract. And I get an email notification saying exactly that. We have a task, we have a track of that saying, hey, I was reminded on such and such date, such and such time, etc. So there's no, again, it's not the idea of eliminating human error. It's just taking the stress of having to remember everything that we do within our day out of it, right? It's a more manageable way to handle these tasks, right? You're automating, it's automating your business process management, storing it within SharePoint, and giving us the ability to make sure that all of our tasks are up to date, right? So now I have this task assigned to me, I can see it, I get emails to say, hey, X, Y, and Z needs to be done, and I know exactly where I can come in and complete it. So let's just save this contract because I want to pull up another contract here. So again, we're going to see this approval process run. Do I have the proper permissions to create a new contract? Does it have to go through any approval process? Just like we did in the purchase order application, you can define contracts by value, by department, by location. It's really up to you on how you want that approval process to flow. But one other thing I want to touch on here when I come in and create a new contract is that in this case, I created a master contract, right? So it's just the second tab down here at the bottom that I kind of glossed over, right? And I'm sure you guys are probably like, hey, what is that at the bottom? Why didn't Ryan talk about it? Well, this is why. I'm coming back to it. So let's say this is a statement of work. Maybe we've added an additional scope to this new contract, right? It happens, things change, scopes change, processes change as you work through any contract, right? That's just the nature of the business. So now we want to say, okay, this statement of work is a new contract we have in place with vendor B, with Crow Canyon, let's say in this option. We'll keep it as the 1-year contract renewal. But now what we want to do is we want to relate this to a master contract. And what that does is it gives you the ability to say, hey, look, this is our master contract, and we want to relate any new contract, any new scope to that master contract. So it gives you the ability to not only create and not only to have tasks and milestones associated with the contract, but what you can also do is you can associate multiple contracts together. So it's just the idea, again, the idea of, let me click this button, show you what I mean. It gives you the ability to connect everything from one screen, right? I'm going to keep coming back to that concept, It's okay. How can I disseminate information? How can I read information as quickly as possible, right? That's the idea. So this isn't a master contract. I want to look up to that contract. Maybe the responsible entity on this is James instead of Ryan. There he is. Renewal options are read only, they're blacked out. Start date's blacked out because we've had this set to the master contract. Oh, well, it's gonna yell at me, but we get the idea. So now what we have is we've created different scopes, different subcontracts related to that master contract. So it just gives you flexibility in what you can do from a multi-layer process, right? One contract is the top level. You have maybe milestones associated to that top contract. You have 3 or 4 more subcontracts related to that master contract, all with their own milestones and tasks associated with them. And it just makes it easier from a tracking and management perspective. Each milestone can have its own set of unique columns or things associated with it. You can have milestones automatically created when a contract type is created, right? We didn't even talk about that, but that's an option as well. We've discussed with other customers of, hey, when a contract template is created, a new contract template type is created. You're also going to create 5 milestones associated with it, right? So it just gives you the ability to build in as much automation as you'd like. Again, it goes back to that 85–90% of the way they're out of the box. Give you the framework and the functionality, a product that's going to stand up and work from day one, but we have the ability to go in and use it as much as you'd like. Now, one other thing I want to touch on here, it's something that I think is pretty handy. I use pretty frequently, like whenever I interact with a customer or a client, but it's this idea of the send email button. What this is, it's a Crow Canyon feature. It's a Crow Canyon email manager. And what it does is it gives you the ability to send an email and automatically relate it to a SharePoint list item. Sounds fancy. Basically, you're sending an email from your inbox or shared inbox, right? It's coming up from my admin account right now. It could easily be, a shared inbox. It can go to the responsible entity on the contract, or really anybody. It can be an outside email address. Use my Gmail account, right? And then you can include attachments. You can create different default mail templates. I've always equated this to like the signatures and Outlook on Client. I'm not sure if you guys use those, but like in the past, you have your 10 different signatures in Outlook on Client for the same emails you write over and over and over again. Same idea, right? So you create you select your template dropdown and you send the email, right? Maybe it's related to this contract, or maybe you just want to write a new email, But what it does, really, is all it is sending an email. The cool thing about this is that if we send it from this email manager piece, what it does once it refreshes here is it stores all of our emails against the contract itself. So instead of having to go back and forth and say, oh, um, I have to copy and paste my emails over. I have to, what did that person say? Where are we in this contract? What did Ryan say about that task? What it does is it just keeps a running history of both outgoing and incoming emails related to that particular contract. As you can see, that email sent almost simultaneously. Now we can store it against the contract itself. So there it is. If I was to respond, it keeps track of both outgoing and incoming emails. Huge thing, no. Time saver, yes, right? So instead of having to throttle back and forth between Outlook and SharePoint, it's all self-contained within the contract. I know, I'm sorry, broken record, tying everything together. Milestones is a child list, email history is a child list. So we've actually sent an email, saved it in its own list, and stored the body, the email body contents of the email in a SharePoint list item. So again, just trying to make things easy, trying to make things efficient and consistent across all of your applications. One thing I didn't touch on, our vendors list. Each application, excuse me, sorry. I swear it's just allergies. I don't have coronavirus. I'm kidding. That was in poor taste. But no, I'm not sick. It's just allergies here, guys. Our vendors list. We see it a lot in all of our applications: purchase requests, contract management, asset tracking. It just basically gives you the ability to store and track vendors. Now, I've seen other customers connect the vendors list across the multiple applications that they have. So they have one singular vendor list, and then it can be assigned to different applications, but the idea is the same. It stores some information against the vendor, the company type, the contact person, and then any contracts, purchase requests, assets related or associated with that vendor. So it just keeps everything, again, self-contained within one space, and you can jump around from list to list as easily as possible. Okay, well, guys, that is the contract application. Now, if you want to switch over and answer some questions, we'll cover those now in contract management. So if you have any, go ahead and fire those up. I'm going to take a look at them.
Yeah, there was one question about connecting with Dynamics 2011. Oh, they're upgrading Dynamics to 365. Asking about integrating with that.
Okay. Yeah, integrations. So I'll leave integration. This is a really good question. Talking about integrating with 365. Thanks, James. Basically, this person wants to be clear to say, what does integration mean? And the reason I leave it pretty bare when I talk about integrations is that an integration can mean different things to a lot of different people, to different organizations, to different companies, right? An integration can be as simple as sending an email, right? Generating an email from a SharePoint list item and spitting that email out to that third-party tool, all the way to pushing and pulling information back and forth based on a form change, a form event action, a form save, on a certain time cadence, right? Like, hey, pull this information every 24 hours, every week. So it really depends. It really depends on how far you want to take that integration. Right now, we haven't run into any limitations when it comes to configurations. We've had some sticky ones with some third-party HR tools because they don't want to give up their APIs, which, unfortunately, we've had to, it's just something that we have to deal with. But like I was saying, there are workarounds, being able to generate emails. So it's kind of a cop-out, but I mean, really, the integration goes as far as you want it to. What I suggest is that if you're truly interested in knowing more about the integrations, is setting up a time to talk to us individually. Pop on a call with myself and James and our dev team to say, hey, look, this is what I'm trying to do. This is what I want to do, and we'll give you some options on the best way to move forward. So there are a lot of options out there for integration. Okay, another question here. I have a few abilities to tag contracts and set date for renew. Yeah, so tagging contracts, tagging with managed metadata, filtering by review dates, termination and renewal dates, all possible by filtering on either the lists or columns themselves. So however you want to filter and view contract information, you absolutely can. It really comes down to how you want that to navigate. I mean, we do have another feature within inside of our Nitro Studio. I'll pull this up while I'm talking about it, but it's our list search feature. And again, list search is one of those things that SharePoint itself, our site search, doesn't do that well out of the box, right? I'm not sure if you guys have used this feature in the past, but it kind of spits you out across your entire site collection. It's not as clean cut as it could be. So our list search feature is a part of our Nitro apps, again included, and it gives you the ability to point a search specifically at a list. So I can send all this information after the fact for the person who asked how to make this, how to apply those fixes or how to apply those filters and those searches for your particular contract instance. But being able to easily search contracts, easily search any lists, you have that ability in this list search feature. And you can do it on multiple lists. You can do it on a specific list. You can put it in different pages. You really have the ability to take it as far as you want. So yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. What other questions do you guys have here? Give you a few more minutes to plug them in while we talk about what's coming next. Okay, cool. Well, if you guys can't think of any questions right now, no worries. If they pop up 5 minutes after the call, again, no worries. Feel free to reach out to me directly. Sales@crowcanyon.com. We all manage and monitor that inbox. So if you shoot it to that email, we'll get it and we'll make sure it ends up in the right person's hands. You can always email me directly. It's my first name dot my last name @crowcanyon.com. So Ryan.Stefani@crowcanyon.com. Either of those is fine. You can call us. This line comes straight to me for questioning. We do have a few more webinars coming up as a part of this remote workforce series. So we have onboarding and HR requests next week, followed by asset management the week after. So we're going to cover HR request management, giving your end users a way to request information from HR. And then also our onboarding process, being able to create multiple tasks for an onboard and have them create tickets in our IT help desk solution, maybe tasks in our HR application. It just gives you, again, the ability to tie all of our different tools together. That's coming next week. We do have a webinar tomorrow. It's called Hot to Trot for Bots. We're going to talk about our AI services within our team space. That's going to be run by Scott Restivo. And James, are you on that one tomorrow as well?
Yeah, I can be. Yeah, I'll be on that one.
Okay, either James or myself, I think, are gonna join in on that one. But there are some new and exciting things coming down the pipe from a team's perspective with Crow Canyon. Again, we kind of talked about it from that email perspective. I had a brief plug about it during the purchase request demo, but being able to create requests from teams, being able to create notifications from teams, basically manage our applications from the team's interface is the way that we're headed. And we're going to give you guys a little peek under the covers as to what's coming and how that's going to affect our applications moving forward. I highly encourage you to join in. Teams is going to become more and more prominent in the Microsoft space, whether you're on-prem or online. So feel free to pop in and have a look at that one. But if there's no more questions now, guys, thanks for joining. I appreciate the time. And we'll hopefully see you next week, or we'll see you tomorrow for our next webinar. Hey, James, thanks for answering questions, and I appreciate you being on. Thanks, everyone.